like in China, of your town, do you have a plan to work from home? You know, those two questions right now, today I'm blitzing, and Wednesday, Angela and I are blitzing, because now is the time to connect with people. We have a solution, guys, and it's on the top of everybody's mind. What are they going to do? And you calling and just saying, have you thought about this? Have you thought about how can you support your immune system? There's no better time. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. You know, this might not ever appear again in our lives. You know, our chance to really help people. It's incredible. I feel so blessed.
Wow. Yeah. We were born for this.
We were born for this.
How do I know that? You're here. You were totally born for this. I made a new 3x5 card this morning. You know, one that is taking on this new challenge. Let me just share. I'll get a little personal with you. This is the role that I want to take on. I mean, yeah, let's elaborate for a minute here. So they shut the Dow down, like the panic button went off.
Yeah, they have a circuit breaker, and if it falls so many points you
gotta stop it, otherwise, yeah.
You have to stop it. Yeah, you know, you can't allow panic craziness to close the world's largest financial market, right?
Yeah.
So the circuit breaker stopped the Dow for 15 minutes, which is an eternity. Okay, because what's happening is the automatic trading programs kick in and start panic selling. You know, it's all computers. And so a pause resets everything, and it's necessary.
Let's everybody collect. Let's wait. Let's take a breath for a second.
Yeah.
You know, and for those of us that, you know, I think we have a pretty awake, you know, audience here. Pretty awake, meaning that we're spiritually awake. Like, we know, like, I guess I'll speak for myself, but I may perhaps be speaking for others as well, is that I'm not attached to this world. I'm just not attached to it. Like I said, I think it was last night on the Zoom, none of us gets out of here alive, right? If you haven't thought about spiritual things, then maybe that catches you by surprise. But as for me, you know, I know we've economically been living on a bubble. You just can't keep fixing things with debt, more and more debt. They called it the debt bubble, and one of these days it's going to pop. And, you know, just to be, you know, not holding anything back, you know, I think they're using the coronavirus as a excuse for popping that bubble, because they know it's been propped up falsely, and they're selling debt on top of debt. I mean, you just can't do that. And so I think it's an excuse. I think that this, you know, I want to come up with a different name besides like coronavirus or virus. This tsunami, we'll just call it this tsunami that's sweeping the world right now, is going to be used for a lot of excuses. But for those of us that have been building our foundation spiritually, we're not moved. This is totally what is meant. You know, and I'll speak from language from the Christian background, because that's the one I'm most familiar with. I've read books on other, you know, faiths and their beliefs, and Buddhist and Muslims, and I don't know them in depthly as I know from my perspective from a Christian background, but I'm open to the truths that they have to share and that I've been able to learn. But I mean, it totally talks about building on a sandy foundation or building on a rock. And when you build on a rock, when the rains descend, you're not moved. The foundation is strong. And I've personally built my foundation on a rock because it's been a foundation on truth. No deception, no guile. You know, I strive to be like that person that Christ is very, you know, gives a lot of kudos to. I don't remember which prophet or which disciple it was, but he says there's no guile in him. Maybe Matthew, I think. But there's no guile in him. That's how I've been trying to live my life. Right here on my wall, it says, above all else, to thine own self be true. And so if we build on these truths, you know, that's that rock that does, when rains come, it just doesn't faze you. The rain still falls. It doesn't mean you don't get wet, but I'm not moved. And really, that's the deeper, more meaningful reasons of going through the science of getting rich. As we apply this to our Isagenix business, we're still on a rock. We're still on safe ground. You know, if we had a business where we had to deceive people to get them started and make it look better than it actually is, then we wouldn't be. We wouldn't be incorporating and harmonizing our lives and our actions with these principles that create that rock foundation. So, you know, I'm not moved. And I've got to guard my focus on how I focus on things at this time. How we focus on things right now and what we choose to focus on is critical right now. And, you know, in one sense, it's kind of like business as usual. I've always said if I knew the world was going to end tomorrow, I'd probably still do a Zoom today. You know, I'd probably still plan on doing that Zoom tonight at 6:30. And because it's the right thing to do, you know. Now, you know, if that scenario is absolutely going to play out, I don't know, maybe I'd be with my family, you know, and maybe I'd still do the Zoom and just excuse myself from the family for a minute, you know, in a scenario like that. But I'm going to go on, you know. Worst case scenario, it's my time to, you know, leave this earth, and I'm still going to go on. And what I'm taking with me is the things that I've learned, the things that I've experienced, and the character and personality that I developed in our highest achievement. Can somebody type in what is our highest achievement? I've said it before. Somebody type in what is our highest achievement as human beings and even as spiritual beings. I would say even as a spiritual being, our highest achievement. What is our highest achievement? Somebody type it into the chat. It goes along the lines of know God's will and do God's will, but it's more on a personal basis. Look, God is real to me. He's as real to me as the sun coming up. And, but he doesn't want me to just be around and do everything that he tells me to do. Is to control your thoughts and your emotions. Your highest achievement is to control your thoughts and your feelings at all times and in all places and in all things. Control your thoughts and feelings. So what would we want to be able to control those around? Well, the truth. Okay, well, that's an abstract statement. Well, the truth around the practical application of those principles. And we know that the highest principle is love. Charles Handel says the law of attraction is the law of love. So that's the one that always leads out. When in doubt, love, right? So I don't think it's the end of the world, you guys. I think it might be an end of maybe an era, but God's in control. And what looks like with the law of attraction, sometimes bad things, sometimes seemingly bad things happen, like things that are exactly opposite as to what you're focusing on and what you're wanting to bring about. That has to happen. Bob Proctor, I remember him saying it in The Power to Have It All. It was like 7 or 8 disc CD series that I won in Isagenix. I won it from George Ruiz. And I listened to it in the cars that I was repairing while I was mechanicking. In fact, I left it in a car once. The customer brought it back and said, I think this is probably the mechanic's CD. And he said, whenever you're going, so let me, whenever you're going to that next plane, so you start creating the thoughts. Remember, there's a gestation period, a timeline that things are going to take to manifest and evolve into that new, being that you're exercising your faith to become. It'll seem for a moment as though you're going backwards. It will seem for a moment as though you're going backwards. He says that has to happen. And sometimes I feel like I'm in tune with that. Like I really get why that has to happen. Right now, I'm not really thinking. I'm not trying to figure out why that has to happen. I just know that it seems like, and I've watched it happen in people that are doing, people that are on this Zoom and people that I've worked with. I always strive to remember that quote because I know that they're going to come up at a point where it feels like they're going backwards. What really happens, I think, is that we're just becoming more aware of our thoughts and things, and we're starting to intelligently think. And so we become aware of more things, and it becomes more contrasted. And we feel like we're in a sense of control. And when things don't happen the exact way because of the gestation period, we're aware of that. And so it just seems like we're going backwards, but we're more intuitive, we're more awake, we're more aware. So it seems like we're going backwards, but you've got to maintain the course. You got to stay the course. That's why I love the 3x5 cards. That's why I love, writing it out, getting it out in a blueprint that I can turn to in any moment where I might lapse in my memory of what I put down, what my true objective is on a defined specific point, especially in the beginning. So I have it very clearly. And I love pictures. Pictures do tell 1,000 words. They give 1,000 emotions to me. And so I can really create, those thoughts and those feelings with both of them combined. And I need that in that moment when it feels like I'm going backwards, or when my mind isn't a perfect memory bank. It's more of a workshop. And right now it needs some work. And so it's a crutch. I'm gonna call it 3x5 cards. Some of you are journaling it out like I did in the beginning. The only reason I came up with 3x5 cards is because I got annoyed of carrying around the big notebook that I had my things written out in sentences and paragraphs. It's about 12 pages long. And I knew it so well that I thought, well, I'll just start transferring some of those main points over to a 3x5 card, which will recall what I'm going to read when I'm at home on the paper, right? So that's how I started using 3x5 cards. So with the 3x5 cards, they're kind of a crutch, and it's my trigger in order for me to maintain my thoughts and feelings in a way that serves me. And that's worth writing down. Always maintaining my thoughts and feelings in a way that serves me and the greater good. So your 3x5 card should always be about the greater good for humanity. Always, always, always. There should be some way, even if it's you wanting a new car and a dependable car, and not just a dependable car, an awesome car. That should still be tied into a way that is still related in one way or form, a domino effect to the greater good for humanity. You driving that new car and putting that value that you're adding. So that's what the 3x5 cards are for. So I can maintain that highest achievement. I'm fallible as a human being. As a human being, I'm fallible. So I've got to have these crutches and these triggers to help me maintain my highest achievement. And that is to control my thoughts and emotions and feelings in a way that serves me and the greater good. So if I'm in fear right now, does that serve me, and does it serve the greater good? If I'm unknowing, does that serve me or the greater good? If I'm unclear as to what my objective is and where I'm heading today, does that serve me or the greater good? And if the answer is no, then you haven't totally embraced and taken advantage of the opportunity of your highest achievement. And using your mental faculties, which is your divine gift. Bob Proctor wrote a book, I recommend it. You Were Born Rich. You were born rich. And meaning that you were born with mental faculties that God has. Why? Because you're the offspring of God, literally. And so what you've inherited innately is imagination, intuition, reason, will, memory, and perspective, perception. So those 6 mental faculties. Bob Proctor asked that. He says, I was lecturing. I was invited to lecture to school teachers, thousands of them. And I asked them what the mental faculties are. What are the mental faculties of the mind? And he said, you know, not one person can answer me in that entire auditorium what the mental faculties of the brain are. And Einstein said imagination is the greatest, most powerful gift we have because it's not limited. He says it's more powerful than knowledge because knowledge is limited. You might gain some knowledge to where you know how to operate on a certain plane of existence and you know how to operate on that level factually. But there's always another level above that until you reach God's status, omnipotence, where nothing has power over you and you have power over all things are subdued under your feet. Then, you know, there's a next level. So yeah, imagination is going to help you get there. Again, those are just some, I mean, that's a pretty profound philosophy and when to guide your life by. And the awesome thing is that we can, even in this scenario. So let me just share with you what I put on in pictures to remind me of who I'm going to be through, what are they, you know, I don't care how many new heads pop up. What is Hydra, or what's the name of that in Hercules? He'd cut off the head and 2 would grow back and then another one. It doesn't matter which, I can adapt to any scenario. That's the awesome thing about these faculties that we have. We can adapt to any scenario, and I don't have to exclude what I'm currently doing, but I can incorporate. And because I understand the principles and that I can be anything I desire, anything that I frame up and I, you know, take on the concept of, I can be that. And I would say that this tsunami that's going around the world is going to help me to develop the being that I always knew I wanted and could be. It's not going to challenge me. It's giving me the opportunity to rise up, to really be that individual that I think Isagenix has been preparing me to be, you know. And look, you know, people's health is just as important as it's ever been. And so it's not taking away any of that. So, you know, taking on the Goliaths. I was listening to Francesca Bastelli this morning, and I just love that album. Carrie makes fun of me because I say album, and it's not album, it's album. It just doesn't sound right to me, so I'll make my own words. This particular album is If We're Honest. If We're Honest. I just love it. Write your own story. Choose to love. If We're Honest. Giants Fall. So, and, you know, and it's a Christian album. So, you know, Gandalf up against the Balrog. I mean, this might be like what some people feel like, and if they're up against this, can you control your thoughts and your feelings in this moment? And that's really the opportunity we have right now. You know, if you've seen Lord of the Rings, this one's, Lord of the Rings. You know, how am I going to control, you know, if you have a giant running towards you, where's your thoughts and feelings going to go at that point? And your ability and your discipline to make sure that they're serving you in every moment. That's when the miracles happen. Why would I want to do that? How does it come back and serve me? Because that how, the greater how, is what will create the miracle. You know, God's how, that he's woven into the fabric of the universe, where the miracles go beyond my understanding, yet I was the catalyst to help create that miracle. Do you understand that? You are the catalyst into creating the miracles. God doesn't do them for you. It's a cooperative deal. It's a co-creative deal. And he would not have slayed, God's power would not have slayed Goliath had David not done his part. Absolutely. There's no question about it. Had David not done his part, there's no way Goliath would have been slain. And God's power is great enough to slay the Goliaths in any moment, but not without us. Not without us. You know, and so this is Enoch right here, and here's the, you know, Enoch and the city of Enoch being taken up to heaven. Well, we're going to bring that city. It's going to come back down to earth. We're going to slay the Goliaths. And this, in the Bible, it says the wicked, they'll fall on their own swords. They'll fall on their own swords. And, you know, from my perspective of what I'm seeing and gleaning going on right now with the tsunami, in a sense, that's kind of happened. Not kind of happened, that has happened. You know, a communist country that wants to take away the freedom and slay millions of people, its own people, you know, is suffering some consequences right now. And so what's that preparing? It might look like something's bad is happening, but what really is the end result from all of this? The end result is that the kingdom of heaven's coming. And what's my role that I'm going to play in that? Because we have to play a role in that. So this is, I've got to put words to this now. I've got to frame it up with very specific words as to role and the value that I'm going to add in society, and work that out in my own mind, and let the Spirit impress upon me and inspire me. Just like John Anderson was impressed. He says the Cleanse for Life, total download into his brain. It happened right in front of Jim and Kathy Coover. He went into a trance, Kathy says, and they're like, what's wrong with John? They're looking at each other, and he stands up and he says, I'll be back in 48 hours. And the reason that happened was because they were sitting at a table, and Jim Coover asked a question to John Anderson. John, toxicity is a big problem in our world today. Is there any way that we can cleanse every cell in the body? And that question put John into a thought process to where, boom, he tapped in. And he was absolutely a receiver that was prepared and ready to receive that message. He said, John Anderson said in his own words, it didn't introduce to me any new herbs. It just formulated them in a way. I saw how they synergistically came together in a way that I had never, it wasn't my own thoughts. It had come together in a way that was a revelation to me. And he went and he formulated that in 48 hours. They came back with, I think, 200 to 400 kits. It's either 200 or 400. He already knew how to make the nutrition. Didn't know about the nutritional cellular cleanse, full body nutritional cellular cleanse. He added that to the nutrition. They sent it out to people that they knew. Like, who's on your list? Who's in your phone? Who do you know? And they just sent them out to people that they knew. Remember, Kathy was a networker in 3 companies. She knew a lot of people. She rose to the top of 3 companies. And so I'm sure they came up with their list. We'll go with 200. It might have been 400, but 200. They sent them all out randomly. And Tony Escobar got one of them. Just showed up on his doorstep in a brown box. And then it was put into generic bottles, and it had instructions in it on a piece of paper. And Tony said he kicked it with his foot. Him and his wife, they were either coming home or something. It was there, and he kicked it with his foot. He says, "What's that?" You know. And his wife, Randy, picked it up and opened it and looked at it. He says, "I'm not going to do it." Tony said, "I'm not going to do it." And she said, "Well, I will. I'll do it." You know, and they knew John, and knew John very well. But Randy did it, and the rest is history. Tony became the first millionaire. Tony and Randy became the first millionaires. Nice Genesis. But my point going back to it downloaded. So I'm going to have to critically think and get into that place where I can have a download on. I want to be in alignment with God with this. You know, I've got to make sure that I'm being guided by the Spirit, by light and truth, and what I'm going to script here. So it goes into, in the book, intelligent substance will make things for you, but it will not take things away from someone else and give them to you. So that's a principle right there. Well, if I'm going to do this, I can't take anything away from anybody. It has to be more for all, less for none. And I'm going to make sure that I am always open to what John was receiving in that moment, walking around with 1 foot on earth and 1 foot in heaven, 1 foot on earth and 1 foot in the spiritual world. So I'm not going to avoid the world. I'm not going to disregard the world. I'm not going to act like it isn't here and I don't want to be a part of it. I want to be a big player. Wouldn't this connotate that I want to be a big player in this world in a good way? Yeah, I don't want to avoid it. I don't want to leave. I don't want to die. I want to play the role that I can play here. And so I got to make sure that I'm, not taking things into my own hands, so to speak. Like I felt like, yeah, I think all of us feel this. All of us feel like we can connect, each one of us, with being the hero in a movie. All of us have felt that. So now how do I frame that up and how do I do it correctly? Not with ego, not with selfishness, not with greed, not with piety, right? But being a humble servant, but a powerful, confident, mighty, humble servant. So you must get rid of the thought of competition. You are to create, not to compete for what is already created. So this isn't replacing what I do with Isagenix. Like we were saying last night on the Zoom, our sling right now with the stone in it is the nutrition that we have. That's how we're going to slay this giant, is with the nutrition that we have. Our immune systems are so critically important right now. And in order for us to show up, we've got to be healthy. We've got to be clear. We've got to have the right brain chemistry going on. More important than ever right now, because this is going to touch every single person's life. And how am I going to frame that up? In the face of quote unquote bad things happening. I'm humble enough to know that I can't create every circumstance out there, that I'm going to be in control. Let me say that again. Let me say it a different way. That I'm in control of every circumstance out there. So that being the case, how am I going to be prepared to stay on that rock and to be the David? How am I going to maintain when circumstances show up that are not favorable, that are a tragedy? Because I believe that this is going to touch one of us in a very close way, in a way that will be close to tragedy. However, again, how am I going to show up? How am I going to frame that up? And so it's going to give me some new opportunities. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep swinging that rock and landing it perfectly so that we'll save people's lives that don't have any health problems right now. Do you guys get how profound that is? We will save people's lives that don't have any health problems right now. And we've got to get into action. We got to get out there. We did 7 Zooms. In a row every night for a week. And there wasn't a whole lot of Davids on that Zoom. I wonder what people were doing rather than getting people on that Zoom. Hopefully they were trying to get people on that Zoom. Right? So, and when we do that, that's where the peace comes. Not from just knowing, the peace comes from doing. So you do not have to take anything away from anyone. So are you framing up, let's go back to the template now. Are you framing up with the template, what's going through your mind? you didn't have anybody on that Zoom, then hopefully you were in a dark room with your eyes closed actions, and you're being that magnet. You're working on attracting those people to you. And when your spouse walks by, they're like, what the heck are they doing? That was Jimmy Smith's story. That was my story too. Carrie was like, why isn't he out to work? Why isn't he out doing, like, talking to people? He needs to be out there doing the do. And Jimmy Smith overheard his wife say, I don't know what he's doing. I think he's lost it. He just sits in that room. He keeps listening to the same record over and over. In his office, the lights are turned out. I think he's lost it. No, he was getting tapped in. He was framing up his thoughts and his emotions. And while you're doing that in your office, you're attracting at the exact same time, simultaneously. As you're practicing doing it and as you're getting in touch with it, you're doing it. You're doing it, Peter. I love that phrase from Hook. You're doing it, Peter. When he started to see the food on the table, he was getting the thoughts and the emotions to create the miracle. You do not have to take anything away from anyone. You do not have to drive sharp bargains. You do not have to cheat or to take advantage. So there you go. You're framing up your fantasy. Have you framed up your fantasy? If you weren't on the Zoom, hopefully you were turning your fantasy into a theory and into a fact. So it goes from a fantasy to a theory on your paper. Theoretically, there it is. Now you're working on creating it as a fact. You're running it through your mind. So you do not have to cheat or take advantage. So what do you want to create? I mean, you don't have to cheat anybody. You don't have to take advantage of anybody. You don't have to be rich right now. You don't have to, what are you going to do with that? It gives you unlimited possibilities for what you could frame up. You do not need to let any man work for you for less than he has earned. You do not have to covet the property of others or to look at it with wishful eyes. No man has anything of which you cannot have the like. And that without taking what he has away from him. It's given us an opportunity to use our mental faculties and that imagination now. This scenario, this tsunami, along with what we have, that gives you an opportunity to be more creative than anybody ever has. The scenarios are giving you an opportunity to come up with new thoughts, original thoughts. You can come up with original thoughts now, because this scenario is going to stretch you to think of, okay, what's the exact opposite of the most terrible things that could be happening? Because most people are going to talk about the terrible things. Most people are going to focus on what they don't want in this scenario, but not us, because we're disciplined, awake, knowing, intelligent beings. We have the pearl of great price. We have that knowledge. So what's the original thoughts you're going to come up with? Write those down and frame them up in a way that is going to create heaven on earth. You are to become a creator, not a competitor. You are going to get what you want, but in such a way that when you get it, every other man will have more than he has now. Wow. But in such a way, you're going to frame it up in such a way that when you get it, every other man will have more than he has now. So if we were to pull up the template and you remember how did you frame up the customers and the results that they're getting? What value did you add to the customers right here? If you've listened to that hour and 50-minute one, you saw how I framed this up. You could frame it up in so many more ways. We could frame it up with a whole different category now with the tsunami, right? We could frame up the value that we're going to be adding to customers, and who right now is going to want that value that you have to offer in the face of these new current circumstances. What do they call that in current something? So with these current circumstances, how can you reframe up something that people are going to be wanting so that you're attracting those people that want the healthier immune system, who want to be safe, who want to be around, who want to do God's work through all of this? They want to stick around. So you'll attract those people to you depending on the way you frame that up. And then as you're reading that, that's an expenditure of force, like a radio station that's making a broadcast. It sends out a signal. It's an unseen signal that's going across the ether, going across the quantum field, and it's landing on people that are tuned into it. Just like somebody who's tuning into a specific radio station with the music that they want to listen to, they tune into a certain radio frequency, a certain radio station that's playing 50s music, or pop music, or rap music, or rock and roll, or classic rock, or grunge, or whatever. They're going to tune into that station. Well, people are already tuned in to a frequency on a spiritual level. So when you send out a signal of, hey, I've got the solution to help you create an immune system that's going to carry you through this, guess who's going to start to be attracted to you? There's no coincidences why strangers will call you or they'll bump into you. And they will have more, and frame that up with you making more money. Of course your cycles are going up. Of course your customer base is expanding. You can't leave that piece out, the law of compensation. Your cycles are going up. I'm so happy and grateful. I'm so happy and grateful that these people, that's customer base, and that I'm blessing people's lives. Now, not only are we blessing them at work and in home, we're blessing them with their mission and their vision, that they were born for this time as well. I'm so happy and grateful I'm now meeting those people that were born for such a time as this, and that I have the nutrition that's going to see them through so that they can fulfill their destiny. I'm giving them the nutrition. We're getting them started on the Forever Pack. We're blessing every cell in their lives on a principle of health that they couldn't get in any other way. We're helping them to live the highest principle of health that's available on the planet right now. So I'm aware that there are men who get vast amounts of money by proceeding in direct opposition to the statements in the paragraph above, and may add a word of explanation. Men of the plutocratic type who become very rich do so sometimes purely by their extraordinary ability on the plane of competition. And sometimes they unconsciously relate themselves to substance in its great purposes and movements. So even people who have maybe not so integritous or noble purposes and intentions, there's still a degree of them wanting to create something that the universe says, bam, there it is. But it's going to use that as a stepping stone. And it says, in its great purposes and movements for general racial upbuilding through industrial evolution, Rockefeller, Carnegie, Morgan have all been the unconscious agents of the supreme in the necessary work of systematizing and organizing productive industry. Now look, it's not just cause and effect. God, being the great and the supreme over all of it, he has his objectives and he has his end goals. And so there are people who are being used to get to that end goal, not taking their freedom away, but God being omnipotent. And that's the how that I don't care to know about right now. But his end goal, again, is exactly what is being framed up right here. The great purpose and movements for the general racial upbuilding through industrial evolution. So these people have been the unconscious agents of the supreme in the necessary work of systematizing and organizing productive industry. And in the end, their work will contribute immensely toward increased life for all. Never have any judgment. Your place is not to judge. Your place is to keep your mind at home. Keep your mind at home, guard your focus with your life. Know what your objectives are clearly. Then use the law of non-resistance. Their day is nearly over. They have organized production and will soon be succeeded by the agents of the multitude who will organize the machinery of distribution. The machinery of distribution, I don't know, better way of distributing than through network marketing. The multi-millionaires are like the monster reptiles of the prehistoric eras. This book was written like in the 1940s, you guys. How prophetic. They play a necessary part in the evolutionary process. But the same power which produced them will dispose of them. And it is well to bear in mind that they have never been really rich. A record of the private lives of most of this class will show that they have really been the most abject and wretched of the poor. And their lives have been that way. The people that, were working on the backs of others so that they could financially get gain. That's still happening in the world. We call them the elite. Like, I don't want to be termed in that category in the way that it's used generally, the elite, right? The plutocratic type. There's not as many of them as there used to be, and there are more that have risen up. And we see that the multitude is rising more than it ever has. Do you see that through all of this? Look what's happening in Hong Kong with the revolution that's happening. You know, this is 1776 all over. This is, you know, the revolution. What was Les Mis on about? You know, the revolution, the rising up. In a sense, it looks like they were going backwards, a lot of tragedy, but what came out of the tragedy? The phoenix. It rose from the ashes and the dust. And that's, in a sense, what's happening right now. Riches secured on the competitive plane are never satisfactory and permanent. You never get the good, fuzzy, joyful enthusiasm feelings from working on the competitive level. You ever see somebody that's really competitive? They're just not happy. They're always in competition, even in sports. Somebody that's always competitive and they don't even want to be friends with the competition, versus those that go up and they give each other a high five, the person that they're competing against. They give them an embrace. They're always saying something nice about their competition. I see it in motocross. You know, I see the guys at the end of the race, the ones that give a fist bump to each other, you know, despite who won and who lost. You must, so he says, you know, on that really competitive level, they're remember, let's see, there's never a sense of satisfaction. It's, and that satisfactory feeling that they get, it never lasts on the competitive level. They are yours today and another's tomorrow. Right? If you're on the competitive level, there's always somebody who's going to be more competitive with that will and that skill, and they're going to take what you have. Nobody can take what I have. Can they take my physical things? Yeah, but nobody can take what I have inside me. That's that rock, right? And I'm doing it for the right reasons. Remember, if you are to become rich in a scientific and certain way, you must rise entirely out of the competitive thought. Get out of that competitive thought. You must never think for a moment that the supply is limited. Just as soon as you begin to think that all the money is being cornered and controlled by the bankers and others, and that you must exert yourself to get laws passed to stop this process, and so on. In that moment, you drop into the competitive mind, and your power to cause creation is gone for the time being. And that what is worse, you will probably arrest the creative movements you have already instituted. You don't want to go into that competitive level ever. You'll arrest, you'll stop, you'll negate, you'll paralyze that creative power in your behalf that's going to serve you. And I've heard people, I've listened to some people that they get it, they understand it. They're out there in the world and they're leading by examples, but it's not in a personal development world. It's just in, you know, what they do, talk show hosts and things like that. And I've heard them say, look, you know, what we're seeing going on is absolutely because of a rising of the light that's happening in the world. There always has to be an opposite and equal reaction. So in this case, in this world where there's fallibility, there's going to be a reaction to the light rising. The reason we are where we're at, which looks like tragedy, like looks like something looks like the Balrog, it looks like the fiery breathing monster, that has to happen. Where'd that go? That has to happen right now, because we're in a world where people they love that more than they do God. They love that more than they do truth. And so that's going to rise up, and then bam, guess what's going to happen? That's going to disappear. And the world will no longer be fallible. It will go to another plane of existence, from a telestial to a terrestrial. The difference between the stars and the light of the stars and the light of the moon. And then eventually the light of the sun. So we're engaged in that. How cool is that? What would be more worthy of my life than to be engaged in God's work, but doing it in a practical application way. That's what we're doing here. Isogenics is the vehicle that allows us to put all of that into a practical application. So if we go back to the template, what am I doing today? Is what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking serving me in the greater good? And you can frame that up so that if you forget in the moment, you hear some news where something happens and it gets your focus on that thing, which would be a self-betrayal. Yeah, you can't unhear what you're going to hear. You can't unsee what you're going to see. But if you give into that fear, if you give into that thought, if you give into that circumstance, is it going to be pulling you away from the goal? Does it serve the goal? And the fact that you have scripted out some words and some paragraphs and some pictures that are going to get you back into the efficient actions that are going to serve you and the greater good. And for right now, yeah, it can serve you on a way that it's going to bless you temporally. Be like a tomato plant. Be like a tomato plant that just keeps giving more and more fruit. It doesn't stop. It just keeps giving more. And that fruit could be blessing others and you at the same time, simultaneously. It can be. All right, so I'm going to open this up. Hopefully that gives you some things to see and some insight. That's giving you some, that dialogue is giving you some insight, you know, that I've been able to share here this morning, and how you can frame up your template a little more profoundly, a little more nobly, a little more value added, a little more intelligent, wisely. All right. So I think you guys, let me see, I think you can unmute yourselves. Let me just, you know, okay. You can unmute yourself now. I love that. I love we're almost empty nesters. And don't you get into the habit of just knowing that there's some noises that you like and you're used to? All right. Anybody want to share anything for such a time as this?
Just to like to shout out to Angela, all the things that are going on. Gosh, we must have spent an hour on the phone last night, just planning out this week. Yes. What's happening, Angela?
Yeah,
I feel it.
People are moving forward, and you know, people are becoming consultants, managers, and they're helping other people to become consultants and managers. We had several of them happen this weekend, Infinity and just some, you know, the Goliaths are being slain. So let's continue to stay on that course and not let fear paralyze us from moving those things forward. Angela.
Yes, and sorry about the echo. It's funny, I was talking to Malcolm, my very nearby mentor, and I was talking about how I had started working on my compelling vision, and I was doing the dishes and I said it out loud and I was so moved I started crying, and I'm like, dang, I wish I recorded that. So I am working on the law of non-resistance so that I can actually write stuff down, because of course it was such a brilliant moment and I'm still in training to where I've got to actually transfer that into writing. So, you know, I'm a work in progress, but as you said, 3x5 cards today, and Malcolm said it last night, I look over in this new little office area I've created, and I'm like, bam, they're everywhere. I got them all over the place. And then what I spent last night doing was getting organized, because everything was everywhere. I have been intaking so much information over this last weekend that if it's not organized and in an efficient manner, as you just mentioned, efficient action, I think it's, you know, I can't be my absolute best and the best messenger that I can be unless I'm organized. So that's what I worked on last night. And I just got to tell you, this is so, what a blessing and an honor that I have access to these leaders, you, Malcolm, you know, and I got to see the Willie and Digna Zoom last night, and it's exponential, and I'm ready to start taking it and moving forward with all kinds of key words that I'm learning today, you know, and I just wrote down those mental faculties. Every day something new pops up, and I just, I'm very excited. So I'm going to blitz with Malcolm together on Wednesday, but I think I'm ready to just put it into action today. So, and I got to get my template done because I got to show up on Sunday. All right, that's what I got. Thank you.
Share. Thank you. Great share. Yeah, you know, these are some 3x5 cards that I just have in my desk. If I have all of them that I'd ever done, there would be boxes of these. And I just get a little ring and I, you know, put holes in the 3x5 cards. And I have pictures on the back of them. But I transitioned to electronics. I didn't think I'd ever do that, but I found an app that I really love. It's more effective and efficient than even my 3x5 cards. So, but now I do it on my iPad and on my phone.
And what's that app called?
Flashcards Go is the app for if you're an Apple user. Flashcards Go. And then I use Over to allow me to collage the picture. So that collage that I made of all of those pictures you saw, I did that in Over. It lets me collage the pictures and then I save them as a photo and then I upload them to my Flashcards Go. Because Flashcards Go only lets you upload one picture. So if you want more than one picture with what you've written, you've got to figure out how to collage those. And there's an app called Over that allows you to do that. All right, good stuff. Good stuff. Anybody else?
John Myers.
Brother John.
Good morning. Good morning. Hey, let's talk flashcards. A couple years ago, I sat next to Dave at my very first function. And I remember the coat Dave was wearing. He had a kind of a gray coat on, sports coat. And we were talking and watching people on the stage. And Dave got up. He had to go somewhere. And I looked on the floor, and there was a flashcard on the floor. It was one of Dave's flashcards. I almost kept it. I thought, wow, I could probably sell this later on for a lot of money. But I grabbed Dave and said, hey, did you lose this? So anyone who's wondering about the flashcards, it's so real. I read what was on that flashcard. It was about self-actualization. And gave it to Dave. Said, here you go. Here it is back. And it encouraged me. I thought, you know what? I better get my flashcards going. And so, yeah, I did. I used flashcards on the Android. It's just called flashcards. And Over's the companion app that helps you create the images. Hey, I am listening to Wallace Wattles' The Trilogy on audible.com. And the reason I am is because the first book is The Science of Getting Rich. The second book is The Science of Being Well. And the third book is The Science of Being Great. And I am recommending during these times the book, The Science of Being Well, as a companion narrative to The Science of Getting Rich. Because it's all about the thinking process and that we're a thinking substance, as is the universe, as is all things, as is all the laws. And I wanted to just put a shout out for that book. Well, I was at the gym working out yesterday. I listened to almost the whole book, but it's great. And I just want to, you know, Wallace Wattles has just changed the world and changed my world too. So that book is called The Science of Being Well. And you can get all three on Audible as a trilogy on one download.
Yeah, you know, with yeah, those books are amazing. What I like to do when I'm really wanting to accomplish something and get it is you glean as much as you can get. You just are in the gleaning process. Like when they're going out and they're gleaning the tree and the fruit and stuff, they're just like nothing's getting missed, right? Imagine, you know, all the fruits that are on all the trees in an orchard and you're just gleaning them. And you're not stopping. You're working all day long. You skip through lunch and you just keep gleaning. That's hungering and thirsting after righteousness. Righteousness is truth. And so I just keep inundating. Like I don't turn it off. If I'm really hungry and thirsty, you don't stop. You just keep gleaning. You keep getting the stuff. So whether it's the same book over and over, and typically I'll exhaust a book, but not ever completely. I'm still can glean more out of The Science of Getting Rich, but adding The Science of Getting Great, adding The Science of Being Well, and just keep gleaning, because as you're getting that truth, it's going to fit with the other truth. And when you can find an author that has several books like that, you know, and like Neville Goddard, and you just glean as much as you can. You're hungering and thirsting after it. And then what happens is that spiritual enlightenment starts to come around those things that you're gleaning. And that's the whole principle behind hungering and thirsting. There is a principle behind it when it comes to spiritual growth, personal growth. You just like you're hungering after it. That gives a connotation of you're hungering and thirsting for it, and you just won't stop. You're looking everywhere for it. When you're gleaning those trees, you'd be looking and trying to find behind leaves, behind branches. You're moving bushes and stuff out of the way to find where's that fruit hidden, so you can pull it and pluck it and have it and internalize it. And that has I've never had any kind of remorse. There's never been any remorse for gleaning knowledge and information from stuff. And it changes you as an individual. You are changed as an individual when you do that. There's the principle behind it. Good share. And with the 3x5 cards, you guys, I had them taped to my mirror. I had them taped by the speedometer. I had them taped to the mirror in the bathroom. I had them on my toolbox at work. I had them everywhere. Duplicates, like I wrote them out and I had duplicates. 3x5 cards. They were everywhere. All right, anybody else?
Hey, good morning, Dave.
Hey.
Hey, good morning. Hey, good morning. God bless everybody. You know, this morning, you know, I usually get up, if not earlier, about 6 o'clock in the morning. That's the latest that I can get up, and send the kids off to school this morning. And you know, in all transparency, you know, we're a full nest. You're almost an empty nest. We're a full nest. So
Big
you know,
difference.
so yeah, big difference, you know. So so I just decided to lay back down, and today I'm gonna cleanse. But I just decided to lay back down, and I think I jumped on at about 20 minutes into the call, you know, and so I just started listening to you guys while I was still laying down. And you know, I'm listening to you, and then I heard Malcolm, and then Angela came on, and Angela was like, Angela reminded me of like why we do what we do. You know, how a seed gets planted, and you know, the soil, depending on, you know, then what gets produced. And she's just lit up, and she talked about, you know, getting emotional while doing her dishes. That's what I love, you know, that's what I love to see, you know, and it's just awesome. And it got me out of my bed, you know, it just got me out of my bed. I was like, let's go, you know, cause, and everything that you were saying, you know, everything that you were saying. And then I heard John, and I downloaded, you know, the trilogy. I downloaded it on Audible right now, you know, because I when I trust where the source is coming from, and I know it's real, you know, it's up to me. It's up to me, you know, and we do have power. We do have say, like you said, Dave. Obviously, there's things that we can't control, but what we can control is how we respond to them, how we react to them. We do have that God-given ability, and it's up to us. You know, and so, you know, I'm just grateful, you know, for this call, for you, again, everybody, but it's the community. It's the community. And, you know, I wasn't introduced to the Science of Getting Rich. Initially, I was introduced to the extended version. You know, some just have a lot more work to do than others. I had to read Think and Grow Rich several times, which is a much longer book, you know, and, you know, but it just as the wheels start turning, you know, and things just start to change, and it's not anything on the outside, it's totally everything on the inside, you know, everything on the inside. Maybe one day when we do this call, one of my favorite visuals is taking, if anybody wants to take me up on this, just take a clear plastic cup and a clear glass or plastic bowl, and fill that bowl like 3/4 of the way, and fill the cup half of the way, you know, a light plastic cup. And so the law is that water seeks its own level. That's a law. Water is going to seek its own level. And how does that apply to us? because the magic happens on the inside. Who we are on the inside aligns exactly with what's available on the outside. And so when you drop that cup inside the, the bowl, where's it going to stop? Exactly at the amount of water on the inside. And so if you think about that, if you want things to change on the outside, just change the inside. Oh, I froze?
No, you're good.
Oh, that was on Dignan. That was on Dignan's phone. Dignan told me I froze. But yeah. So it just, that visual to me is like, let's go. It's truly an inside job. And that's a gift. We've been given that power. And it's just, we need to be aware of it. It's unfortunate that a lot of us don't utilize it. We have evolved, and not entirely, and everything is not in a good way. But I'm with you, Dave. I heard from Tony Robbins, 8 years ago. Now I am the voice. Now I am the voice. I am a force for God. I am a force for good. It's my decision, what I decide to participate in. And the good news is it's all available. There's things we can control. There's things we can't. Let's focus on the things that we can control. Protect ourselves against the things that can cause us harm. And let's put 99% of our effort and mental focus on the things that we can. So I'm glad I woke up on time. I don't know what I missed for the first 20 minutes, but I think I got enough for the day and for the week. And it compiles, and it becomes part of our life, and it becomes part of who we are. So thank you, Dave. Thank you, everybody. I love and appreciate each and every one of you guys.
Thanks, Willie. Great stuff. I just wrote down a couple notes. Just they're reminders for me, but I'll share them with you. It's a little bit redundant, but that never hurts. Bob Proctor, in that little 3-minute video, Turning Your Fantasy into a Fact, he says you can do it on a crowded subway. You could be turning your fantasy into a fact on a crowded subway. And you could be doing it while you're doing the dishes. You could totally be doing it at any time. And most people say, well, I don't have time to do it. You would be surprised how much time you're spending not thinking. And that's valuable time. You could be working on your mental discipline and doing it and what you were saying, as on the inside, so on the outside. What you consistently think about, backed by emotion, you bring about. What you consistently think about, backed by emotion, you bring about. You bring about. You bring about. And I love what you said. This is something I used to try to drive home a lot. I just always brought it up. You could respond intelligently, or you could react ignorantly. Respond intelligently or react ignorantly. And if you watch, once you're awake and you understand this, and you're like Tony Robbins, now I'm the voice, you see how people are acting ignorantly all around you. They're letting the circumstances cause them to react in a way that doesn't serve them, because they don't know. They don't realize that what's on the inside, they're going to grow that. They're going to expand it based on what they're talking about and how they react to it emotionally. Guard your emotions with your life, you guys. And it's a gift or a curse. It can be a gift or a curse. Really, it's not a curse, but if you're reacting ignorantly, it can give you the results you're not wanting. All right, I think we're there. We're over. I've got another call I got to jump on with Lenny. Anybody else that just has to say something? Gleaning and hungering and thirsting, you guys. That'll be our call to action. Hungering and thirsting and gleaning after righteousness. And that's any righteousness is not just what's in the Bible. It's any truth. Math is righteousness. Learning math and the truth behind, dare I say it, algebra, trigonometry. It would serve me if I knew those things. I could frame that up and say, I'm awesome at math, and take on that concept. But right now I'm going to focus on the things that I put on my 3x5 cards. Those are the concepts who I want to be.
Hey, Dave, I feel compelled to say this because I believe in it. Maybe you can add to it. But I think anybody that hasn't done any kind of flashcards, I would encourage you to probably do it manually first because of the value of it, what, you know, the role that it plays in your brain by writing, you know, and then after you've mastered that, you know, because we're just constantly looking for the easier and softer way. And I don't mean any offense to anybody. I do it too. I do it too. And I can easily miss, you know, something of great value because, you know, so I'm not there with the digital. I still write, you know, you know, and I'm reluctant to go, you know, with digital, whatever. Maybe I could now. You know, but anybody that's new, I would absolutely encourage you to write them out. You know, it's just well worth it. You know, cognitively, I know it also gets deeper into our consciousness.
Yeah, right here on my YouTube channel, how to build out your 3x5 vision cards correctly. That one right there shows you how to do it, how to get the pictures off of Google, print them out on your printer, tape them to the back of your 3x5 card, and how to use the law of compensation, which is what we've done with the template. That would be an advanced training, the template. But this is actually going to show you, you know, some methodology to the 3x5 cards in the physical 3x5 cards. Good point. And there is, like you said, there is something about writing down, and that's why I still write things down. You know, I'm still writing. I have my little electronic pencil now to do it on my iPad. And okay, so all right, thanks you guys. Good mastermind.
Thank you, Dave.
Everybody have a great week, and let's go out there and rock it.
Let's do it.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks,
Right.
Dave.
Here we go.
Thank you.